On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, heavy snow fell as he declared he would annul our betrothal. Gazing at the youth before me, slender and graceful yet filled with hatred, I knew he, like me, had been reborn. In our past life, the one he loved entered the palace as an imperial consort, leaving him no choice but to marry me. For 3 years of marriage, he offered me only coldness and resentment. After his beloved died in childbirth, he descended into madness, setting the Sierra residence ablaze and attempting to drag me into the flames with him. Now, in this second life, he surely seeks to be with his true love. Before the rockery, he impatiently annulled the betrothal and gazed at my cousin. Heaven has eyes, granting my undying devotion. Behind the rockery, a man clad in imperial yellow robes leaned close to my ear. Who could disagree? Main text: December snow fell in swirling flakes, yet Siazichin knelt on the ground, his back rigidly straight, seemingly oblivious. My mind is made up. Today, I shall annul this betrothal. Supported by my maid, I stepped out of the courtyard. The snow beneath my feet felt soft and powdery, its chill a stark reminder of reality. I had truly been reborn on the very day of my coming-of-age ceremony. My father had prepared a grand banquet, filling the hall with the capital's nobility and officials. Their gazes now fixed on a single figure, Siazichin, heir to the Duke of Wei, who had abruptly halted and knelt before taking his seat, demanding to annul our betrothal. Such a thing had never been seen before, calling off a marriage on the very day of the bride-to-be's coming-of-age ceremony. This left the Chui family utterly disgraced, the Xie family utterly without virtue. My father, enraged, smashed his wine cup. The Duke of Wei, his face ashen, snapped, "Have you been drinking before the feast and speaking nonsense?" Yet Siazichin repeated only one sentence: "I demand to annul the betrothal with the Chui family. I will never marry Chui Wan." Gazing at him, still the youth he was, yet his face held that familiar blend of resolute coldness and sharpness, my heart skipped a beat. So he, like me, had been reborn. On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony in my past life, Siazichin was present, yet he did not break off the engagement. He was renowned in the capital as a gentleman of impeccable manners, raised with strict discipline, the epitome of propriety and decorum. Even upon learning his beloved was to enter the palace for the imperial selection, he nearly drank himself unconscious at my coming-of-age banquet. Yet his drunkenness rendered our childhood betrothal null and void. For the next day, all knew that the heir to the Duke of Dingwa, drunk, had barged into the Chui family maiden's boudoir, sharing a room with the newly come-of-age Chui maiden until dawn. My family was naturally furious. This was a maiden violated in her own home, yet burdened with such a reputation. Siazichin was dragged by the Duke of Wei to apologize for his drunken misconduct, and the two families discussed advancing the wedding date. Siazichin agreed to everything, yet after the marriage, he grew to hate me. I never knew Miss Chui possessed such tactics, so reckless and shameless. Do you truly believe forcing your will makes everything go your way? How laughable. If you doubt it, just watch. Though he was the one who erred, he looked at me with cold contempt, utterly disdainful. The one he loved was my cousin, soon to enter the palace. Seeing her beyond his reach, he had long planned to request a frontier posting after my coming-of-age banquet, never to return. Yet this one night of folly ruined everything. It shattered his pure, moonlit dreams, the pristine snow he wished to preserve as his sole true offering to his beloved. So he feigned joy, agreed to the marriage, and spent 3 years after our wedding treating me with relentless coldness and cruelty. Even when I fell ill, he concealed it from my parents, yet sat by my bedside, watching me with icy indifference. Chui Wan, this is what you wanted. The day news arrived that my cousin Jinyueshu had died in childbirth, he first set foot in my courtyard. The maid said I'd endured the clouds parting to reveal the moonlight. Her words stirred a flicker of hope in my long-dormant heart, so I let her dress me with beaming joy. But Siazichin, reeking of alcohol, drew near. Seeing my eyelashes flutter nervously, he suddenly laughed. I opened my eyes just in time to meet his gaze, filled with scorn. What were you expecting? I was merely wondering what expression would cross your face if you too conceived a child, only to die in despair during childbirth. My face drained instantly. In a surge of shock and fury, I struck him across the face. 3 years of pent-up resentment erupted within me. Siazichin, if you never wanted this, why did you marry me? Your affections are lofty and pure, but what have I done to deserve this? How dare you treat me this way? He suddenly lifted the candle beside him, his eyes dark and menacing. On the day of your coming-of-age ceremony, I was drunk, but you were not. Won't you admit now that you planned this long ago? I felt terribly dizzy that day. I don't know what I ate that was wrong. I was helped back and went to rest. When I woke, I found you in my room. I've repeated this explanation countless times over 3 years. Xiaozichan has grown weary of it, yet refuses to believe me. He snorted again, then set the curtains ablaze with the candlestick amidst my screams. I intended to make you suffer as you wish you did, but I fear she's waited too long below. Today you'll leave with me. When you see her, speak plainly, admit it was all your fault. The only one I ever loved was her. Madman! You lunatic! I'm going back to the Chui family. I spun away in panic, only to be yanked back by him. His bloodthirsty eyes held that familiar scorn. You've dressed so exquisitely today. Did you truly believe I intended to consummate our marriage? And what if I did? What if you were pregnant? Do you think I truly care about you, or the child that came from your womb? She is the moon in the heavens, you are mud upon the earth. How could you ever compare? The flames spread relentlessly. I was so consumed by despair I could not utter a sound. Whether choked by thick smoke or gripped by fear of death, my tears flowed unceasingly. Xiaozichan, my parents said I was the most precious treasure in the world, destined for a life of perfection. Had I never met you, that would have been my destiny. He seemed to freeze for a moment, then the rafters collapsed. I lost consciousness. When I awoke, it was the day of my coming-of-age ceremony. The snow in the courtyard finally ceased. Xia and Miss Chui were not meant to be. I asked Miss Chui to understand this sooner rather than later. Prolonging this serves no purpose. Xiaozichan lifted his head and looked straight at me. To force this would only create a pair of resentful lovers. Rebellious son. The Duke of Wei rose and strode over, snatching a guard sword from beside him. He struck Xiaozichan's back with the sword in its scabbard. I'm telling you to stop this nonsense. Where has your usual decorum gone? Each blow landed heavier than the last. As a former martial arts champion, the Duke of Xia found it almost beneath him to discipline his unskilled son. Seeing blood trickle from Xiaozichan's lip, my father stepped in to stop him. My daughter's coming-of-age banquet had already been marred by this incident. It would be disastrous if someone were killed. He calmed the Duke down, then turned to stare coldly at Xiaozichan. I watched you grow up. Since you call me Uncle Chui, I'll maintain this formality. My daughter, Chui Yuanshan's daughter, in both talent and beauty, is she unworthy of you, young Master Xia? Xiaozichan looked up at me, pausing in surprise for a moment. Miss Chui possesses both virtue and talent, with beauty as radiant as the moon. She stands foremost among the noble ladies of the capital. In that case, my mother hurried over, clutching my hand tightly. Her usually gentle face was now as cold as frost. Stand at the gate of the Chui residence and shout 3 times, Xiaozichan is unworthy of Chui Wan. I renounce this betrothal. Then we may part. Xiaozichan's face darkened instantly. He hadn't expected Princess Ronan, who usually showered him with affection, to speak such words. Seeing my own surprise, my mother patted my hand. Wanner, understand this, a man's vows of eternal love are worthless. But if he'd rather lose face than agree, that shows a heart of stone. Hearing this, I understood. On one hand, Mother wanted to punish Xiaozichan for disregarding me and publicly breaking off the engagement. On the other, she feared my heartache and sought to comfort me. In my past life, after Xiaozichan awoke in my room, though he harbored deep hatred for me, he maintained his usual polite demeanor. My parents, who had watched him grow up and knew him inside out, were deceived by him. Now, even the slightest hint of reluctance from him would be enough for my parents to call off the match. Their only concern was me. Realizing this, I clasped Mother's hand again. Don't worry, Mother. I raised my voice, enunciating each word clearly. I never liked Prince Xia to begin with. Xiaozichan, who had been caught up in my mother's demands, looked up at my words, his expression a mix of shock and astonishment. Then he gritted his teeth and sneered, very well. I never liked him to begin with. It was actually my cousin who liked him. My cousin is the eldest daughter of my eldest uncle. When my uncle was young and sent south on official business, he met Jing Yan, the only daughter of the Jing family of Qinghe. He was so determined to marry her that he gave up his official post in the capital to pursue this union, even getting into a fierce argument with my grandfather, who was still alive at the time. Grandfather believed that after the late emperor's death, the Jing family of Qinghe had used the young emperor's age as an excuse to delay handing over military authority in Huainan, and suspected them of plotting in secret. Yet my uncle was solely focused on marrying Jing Yan. To achieve this, he even rode into the Jing residence in a wedding sedan chair himself, a story that became a laughingstock in the capital for years afterward. Sending my young cousin to the capital to be raised was the solution my uncle devised to clear suspicions about himself and the Jing family of Qinghe. Thus, my cousin grew up alongside me. I cared for her deeply, regarding her as my own sister. Even if something was my one and only possession, I would give it to her if I saw the longing in her eyes. In my previous life, before my cousin entered the palace, she spoke to me daily of Xie Zichen, how graceful and handsome he was, how profoundly talented. But I later learned she always omitted certain things when telling me these stories. Like how Xie Zichen invited her to the night market lantern festival, how he gifted her a priceless jade hairpin, or how he secretly inscribed her name within his acclaimed poem at the poetry gathering. She concealed these truths, instead repeating to me most often, "Look how perfectly suited you and the crown prince are." She also frequently mentioned the betrothal, but I dismissed it. Father and mother said it still depends on my own wishes. Hearing this, my cousin slowly clenched the hand hanging at her side and remarked softly, "Uncle and aunt truly dote on their little sister." After the incident at my coming-of-age banquet, I soon married Xie Zichen. The following year, when I went to the palace to pay respects to her, now the noble consort, she patted my hand affectionately. "My dear sister has married the gentleman most coveted by the capital's noble ladies. Truly, you are blessed. Prince Xia is so thoughtful. Even while away from the capital, he specially sent delicacies from Nanguang. The guards said 2 swift horses were exhausted to death delivering them. Would you like to try some, little sister? Oh, what a scatterbrain I am. You two are newlyweds, and he treats you like a precious jewel. You must have had your fill before I even arrived." Xie Zichen went to Nanguang on official business. I never received any delicacies, nor a single word from him. After that, such incidents kept happening. These two, one a court official, the other a palace consort, seemed to be playing some lingering game. To me, it was a nightmare. Even in my final moments, I prayed heaven would have mercy and spare me from being entangled in others' karma. My eyes stung with tears. When I snapped back to reality, Xie Zichen was already kneeling outside the Chui residence, uttering his final words. "Xie Zichen knows he is unworthy of Chui Wan. Today, I request to dissolve our betrothal." He lifted his head to gaze at me from afar. In his stunned gaze, I slowly smiled. 10 years of knowing each other, 3 years as husband and wife, this was the one thing he did right. My body began to burn in the night. Dazed and confused, just like in my past life. Before my coming-of-age ceremony, I'd barely eaten anything to preserve my makeup. Only the tray of pastries my cousin brought. Having lived through so much now, I knew full well her ill intentions toward me. Yet even after reincarnating, I was still a step too slow. Fortunately, though she sought to ruin me, her possessive nature prevented her from letting Xie Zichen truly come to harm. The potion's effects weren't severe. Plus, with secrets weighing on my heart, I couldn't sleep until morning like I did in my past life. Walking alone to the back garden for some air, I overheard low voices. It was Xie Zichen and my cousin, Jin Yuezhu. "Your Highness, I went to the temple early today to pray for Awan. Why are you here? At this hour, shouldn't you be? Yuezhu, the one I love is you, not Chui Wan." Xie Zichen, oblivious to the shock etched on Jin Yuezhu's face, seized her hand and poured out the longing that had spanned a lifetime. "Heaven has eyes, granting my devoted heart its wish." Jin Yuezhu's expression at that moment could only be described as horrified. Though they had met privately many times, they had always kept a veil of restraint between them, a dynamic she had maintained by understanding Xie Zichen's reserved nature. She had never seen him speak so plainly. Jin Yuezhu composed her features. "Your Highness, you are betrothed to my cousin. How can you utter such words? Yuezhu, you've only just returned. You likely don't know I've already broken off my engagement with Chui Wan. His gaze was fixed solely on the woman before him. Now, I can ask for your hand in marriage. Even Jingyue Shu, with her usual composure, could not force a smile now. She shoved Xie Zichen away, her voice sharp. Prince, do not speak nonsense. In a few days, the matrons will come to take me to the palace. I am the emperor's woman, how could you possibly ask for my hand? Xie Zichen's face drained of color. Yue Shu, you said it was a pity I was betrothed, that otherwise you would have been with me. Are you unhappy? Watching the two face off, I shook my head and muttered, the emperor really is something. He should have just let them be. Instead, he had to break up a loving couple. Serves him right for what happened in the past life. How did I deserve it? A cold, clear voice rang out beside my ear. Startled, I turned to meet Li Shujin's magnified, handsome face. My legs went weak, and I nearly knelt. Your Majesty? The figure before me wore a black fox fur cloak over his imperial yellow dragon robe. A strand of lingering snow from the cloak's edge settled upon his indifferent brow, softening the gaze he fixed upon me. The man I never saw again after our marriage in my past life, now a youth unchanged, as if from another world. Yet fear of him had been ingrained in my bones since childhood. I hurried to curtsy, nearly stumbling, but he steadied me with one arm. I intended to rise quickly and thank him, but whether it was the closeness or something else, the dormant effects of the medicine suddenly kicked in. My body went limp, powerless, and I leaned half against his chest, unable to move. Those deep, quiet eyes stirred with hidden currents as he stared at me, frowning. Chui Wan, what's wrong? My current state. If my father saw me clinging to the young emperor he had nurtured with such devotion, he would surely cover his face and scold me for disgracing the imperial family. I forced myself upright with my last ounce of strength. Your Majesty, I'm fine. Look, I'm just. Before I could finish, I toppled backward again, caught once more in his arms. He practically snatched me into his embrace. A sigh, tinged with lingering fear, fell upon my head. Chui Wan, who's there? Behind the rockery, Xie Zichen's voice suddenly rang out. Jingyue Shu snapped back to her senses, her face pale as she forced composure. What if someone discovers us meeting secretly under the moonlight? What if it delays my entry into the palace? Xie Zichen paused at her instinctive reaction, but decided to check behind the rockery first. Two sets of footsteps drew nearer. I couldn't spare a thought for that, gripping Li Shujin's sleeve tightly as I stared at the path beside the rockery. Your Majesty, we must hide. But he merely raised an eyebrow, unhurriedly tightening his grip around my waist. Why should I hide? Given Li Shujin's aloof and cold nature, I'd imagined he might abandon me and flee. Yet I never expected he wouldn't even consider moving. Apart from my father, I'd never seen Li Shujin heed anyone's words. Even now, as he eavesdropped, he wore an expression of utter self-assurance. I couldn't help but inwardly marvel, being emperor truly had its perks. Even thick-skinned behavior went unchallenged. Thus, when Xie Zichen led Jingyue Shu to the rockery's rear, they found Li Shujin sitting with impassive composure, holding me in his arms. I buried my face in his chest, desperately trying to diminish my presence. Your Majesty? Xie Zichen and Jingyue Shu startled, hastily kneeling. For some reason, seeing them like this gave me a sudden sense of satisfaction. Li Shujin ascended the throne at 10, presiding over court and receiving reports. Every court official revered him, while children his age in the capital still dreaded the paddles of their academy teachers. The more fortunate ones, like Xie Zichen who always ranked first in studies, admired the young emperor's charisma and saw him as the ruler they would loyally serve in the future. I heard he composed a poem for the young emperor, pouring his devotion and admiration into it, only to receive the emperor's curt reply, keep it sincere and straightforward. No exaggeration, no fanfare. Xie Zichen was so humiliated and angry he skipped school for 3 days. I was 2 years younger. Every day, I saw my father bring home the young emperor's anthology of essays, always a thick stack, his face always filled with satisfaction. I feared him from childhood, his presence commanded respect without anger, making him hard to approach. I also harbored a vague jealousy, feeling he had stolen my father away. Li Shujin was, without exaggeration, the nightmare of his generation in the capital. Yet thinking of how everyone dreaded him, I suddenly felt he wasn't so terrifying after all. Rise. Li Xiujin commanded. Before either of them rose, their gazes had already fallen upon me in his embrace. Xie Zichen pressed his lips together tightly and hissed at me, "Chui Wan, what are you doing?" Xing Yuezhu's hand, hanging at her side, clenched the hem of her skirt as she glared hatefully at the arm Li Xiujin used to hold me. "Your Majesty, my cousin is spoiled. Having just reached the age of coming of age today, how might she have offended your Majesty?" Li Xiujin lifted his eyelids coldly. "Did I say she offended me?" Xing Yuezhu's face froze. No. You call her spoiled? The Grand Tutor constantly laments to me that his little girl is far too well behaved. Or is it you, her cousin, who knows her better than her own father? Xie Zichen turned to look at Xing Yuezhu. She had lost her composure and hurriedly explained, This humble daughter spoke rashly. My younger sister's character is truly excellent. I no longer wished to listen to their words. I only felt unbearably hot, as if a furnace burned within me, while Li Xiujin's skin was cool and refreshing, tempting me to draw closer to him. Thinking this, I acted on it. I raised my hand and wrapped it around Li Xiujin's neck, like a trumpet vine twining around a tree trunk. Xie Zichen and Xing Yuezhu were startled by my bold gesture. "Chui Wan, do you know what you're doing?" I recognized Xie Zichen's gritted teeth tone. He always irritated me like this. I nuzzled deeper into Li Xiujin's neck, my gaze drifting hazily to his ears, now tinged with a faint blush. "I know." I sighed contentedly, admitting honestly, This feels so good." Li Xiujin's ears flushed even redder. Xie Zichen watched me, his frown deepening, yet his gaze was captured by the flush on my cheek. As if something struck him, his entire face suddenly drained of color. "So, you were telling the truth." His words came out abruptly, but I understood their meaning. I had explained countless times that I was also a victim on the night of my coming-of-age ceremony, yet he never believed me, often mocking me instead. Now he finally believed I had never schemed against him. Yet for him, it felt like another, even harder truth to accept. Lost in thought, staring at Xie Zichen, I was suddenly covered over the eyes by a warm, firm hand. Li Xiujin's cold voice reached my ear, "If there's nothing else, you may withdraw." His words were directed at those two. Xie Zichen abruptly stepped forward. "May I ask where your Majesty intends to take Chui Wan?" Though clearly a subject, his tone carried an unmistakable undertone of questioning. Li Xiujin gave him a faint glance. "Must I account to you?" Xie Zichen lowered his gaze. "Your servant dares not. It's just that today is Chui Wan's coming-of-age ceremony, and your Majesty has just returned from the Northern Mountains hunt. Rumors are always the most vicious. Thank you for your concern, Prince. I was merely stopping by to see the Grand Tutor." Li Xiujin removed the hand covering my eyes, briefly revealing my flushed face before quickly covering it again. Or perhaps Prince Xie could enlighten me. How exactly is Chui Wan faring? Seeing my momentary daze, Xie Zichen swiftly began to answer. "She was, by someone, my younger sister was deeply devoted to the prince. After the betrothal was broken just now, she drank a few more cups. She appears quite drunk now." Xing Yuezhu finished speaking, then discreetly tugged at Xie Zichen's sleeve, signaling him to say no more. A broken engagement? I only heard that Prince Xie shouted outside the Chui residence that he was unworthy of Chui Wan. Li Xiujin's voice rose at the end, his gaze fixed on Xie Zichen. "So the Crown Prince is so self-aware. I'm delighted for the Duke. As a reward, I shall bestow upon him the pheasant I hunted today. According to my father, when the Emperor is pleased, he often rewards people with game, but never with pheasants. How could a pheasant be a reward? It's not a phoenix." It wasn't disrespectful, but it was certainly sarcastic. Xie Zichen accepted the gift in confusion, head bowed, clearly displeased. I suspect he might have recalled the poem he painstakingly composed for the sovereign at age 10. Back then, he might as well have shouted, "I'm a good-for-nothing." That would have suited Li Xiujin's taste far better and delighted the dragon's heart. Xing Yuezhu stepped forward. "Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. I too came out searching for my younger sister and encountered the Crown Prince. Perhaps your Majesty could entrust Wan Wan to me?" I shall take her back. Li Shujin remained silent. This silence, however, filled me with dread. The effects of the drug had not yet worn off, and the memories of how these two had collaborated to torment me in my past life, as if subjecting me to slow torture, were still vividly etched in my mind. If handed over to Xing Yuezhu, the same torment might unfold again by dawn. Of the three present, only Li Shujin felt trustworthy now. Though radiating imperial authority, he offered a sense of safety. I prayed he would spare me either because we'd known each other since childhood, or out of respect for my parents' loyal service to the throne. I nestled deeper into his embrace, calling out in a muffled voice like I did when we were children, "Brother Jean." No one knows that before I understood the world, before my cousin came to the capital, Li Shujin was my only playmate. Back then, the late empress was still alive, and my mother often went to the palace to accompany her. Whenever the adults were talking, I'd run to the window of Li Shujin's imperial study and wave at him. After seeing my father off, he'd sneak out to play with me. Later, the late emperor passed away. The Empress Dowager pulled the young Li Shujin into power, only to commit suicide years later to return the throne. Li Shujin never came out again. My mother held me inside, saying only, "Jeaner's days of joy will only grow fewer with each passing day." We drifted apart. Only through my father's praise did I learn that the boy who loved to make me laugh had finally matured into a composed emperor. After so many years, seeking refuge, I grew this close to my childhood companion. "Can you stay with me, Brother Jean?" The next morning, I was roused by my father's furious voice. He and mother argued across the screen in my room, their voices growing louder. A man and a woman alone together all night, in Wanner's boudoir. What on earth was he thinking? The words felt eerily familiar, as if I'd heard them before. I jolted upright from the bed. Blinking through the haze, still half asleep, I faced mocking voices, my cousin's gasps, and Xiezichen's icy, resentful gaze. What followed was a hazy continuation of my life as the Xie family's wife, sacrificing my life in a love suicide for my husband's most cherished one. The raging flames consumed the hair my mother had braided for me countless times, and the suja-woven brocade my father had sent to the Xie residence for me to wear. In my final moments, I tried to break free from Xiezichen's tight grip, but failed time and again. Amid the firelight, he laughed at me, chillingly and coldly, "Don't waste your effort. I'm taking you to meet Yuezhu." My heart was filled with utter innocence and despair. I cursed him as a madman, wailing that I wanted to go home, that I missed my parents. Yet his cruelty left me with nowhere to turn. What Yuezhu envied most was your loving parents. But you'll never see them again, nor return to the Chui family. Even in death, you'll enter my Xie family tomb as a Xie Chui. Only then will Yuezhu find some peace. Each scene felt utterly real, as if I remained trapped within it, unable to escape. Father and mother rushed in from the outer room, shaking me awake. Mother gathered my trembling body into her embrace, stroking me gently over and over. "Did you have a nightmare, my child? What fire burned so painfully? Mother is here. Don't be afraid." I opened my eyes. Only father and mother were in the room, no cousin from my past life, nor the crowd of her close friends she'd brought along to gawk. Nor was there Xiezicchen, who had intended to explain things to my cousin, glared at me with venom, and ultimately resolved to marry me only to torment me slowly. I drew a deep breath, my chest still heaving with unease. Father looked tense. "Tell your father honestly, did the emperor mistreat you?" I froze. "Li Shujin?" Mother combed my hair as she explained what had happened. The nightmare from my past life hadn't returned. Li Shujin had the Imperial Guard seal off my quarters completely, while he himself had guarded me all night. My parents only knew my courtyard had been off limits yesterday, and that Li Shujin had left my room early this morning. I recalled a peaceful night, with a pair of eyes watching me for a long time. My father pieced together the situation, but he didn't relax. His face remained dark. "The emperor is thoughtful. Not a single whisper has leaked out." My mother spoke as if trying to console him. Father said nothing, only told me to rest well before striding out the door. "Your father and I only wish for your smooth path and carefree days. Why do you keep such important matters bottled up inside? You weren't like this when you were little." "I don't know why, But as you've grown, even the little bit of spirit we managed to nurture in you has been worn away." My mother sank into recollection, her eyes filled with heartache. "I remember being spoiled as a child, innocent and lively. Later, when my cousin arrived, I often saw her quietly weeping in corners. I asked her why she was sad. With father and mother by your side, you can be as carefree as my sister. But I was born under a star of hardship. Every time I see you ask for what you want and get it, or do whatever you please, it breaks my heart." She wept so hard, I didn't know how to comfort her. Later, whenever she saw me asking father and mother for things, or when I ran out to play on a whim without being scolded, she would cry again. "Sister, how can you be so willful?" She often corrected me, as if she couldn't bear to see even the slightest hint of recklessness in me. Gradually, I became more and more restrained. Little did I know this would make father and mother worry about me. Mother held my hand. "Your father and I made a vow before the heavens to protect Jinyu. Your father even imparted all his knowledge to the young emperor. From childhood, we've been bound by duty. Like many in this world, including the current emperor, we never found freedom. Only you, we hope you live without restraint. Our Wanwan, even if you're a little willful or stubborn, it's all right." My nose stung with emotion, and I clung to Mother's embrace, refusing to let go. "Mother, could I not marry? Is it related to your nightmares?" I nodded. Mother gently stroked my cheek with a look of heartache, asking no more. "Of course you may. Your parents will cherish you for a lifetime." Fearing my constant preoccupation with nightmares, and coinciding with the Princess of Pingnan's birthday banquet, Mother took me to the celebration. Hearing the mansion possessed a bamboo grove, I ventured out alone. Yet within the Pingnan prince's estate, I crossed paths with Xie. "Chui Wan, what is your relationship with the emperor?" His tone was as imperious as in my past life. Uncomfortable, I pretended not to hear and walked around him. But he seized my hand, forcing me to face him. "You've returned too, haven't you?" Just as I could see the same look in his eyes as before, he could see mine. I sneered coldly. Now that our betrothal was dissolved, acknowledging it meant nothing. "What? You want to kill me again?" He pressed his lips together, admitting his actions without hesitation. After a pause, he added, "You were poisoned last night. Why were you with the emperor? Could it be that now you've been given another chance, you're scheming for something else?" Why was he angry? Never mind. I just enjoyed provoking him now. I was scheming for that very thing. You could break off our engagement to marry my cousin, why can't I pursue the man I truly desire? His face flushed from pale to crimson. The man you desire? You don't love me? Before I could speak, he clenched my hand tighter. To compete with Tong Yueshu over a moment's pride, you'd sacrifice your own future? His flustered, tail tucked between legs expression struck me as oddly pitiable. Xie, listen well. I've never liked you, nor did I ever scheme to marry you. After last night, you should understand that. You and your beloved ruined my life, now you dare try to stop me? He released my hand, took 2 steps back, and shook his head stubbornly. "Chui Wan. He's the emperor. Didn't you see what happened to Yuezhu in our past life? Just mind your own Yuezhu. Who I'm with is none of your business." He tried to stop me again, but I casually kicked him. Caught off guard, he tumbled into the nearby pond. The water was shallow, but the muddy silt looked like it hadn't been dredged yet. Xiezichen's fine robes were already ruined beyond recognition. "Chui Wan! How dare you!" He floundered in the mud, a picture of humiliation and fury. "What wouldn't I dare? I only regret not finding a room to lock you inside and burn it down. Or perhaps lock your beloved inside too, fulfilling your long-held wish? How does that sound?" His face, now covered in mud, betrayed sudden shock. We started anew. I thought our past was buried, an unspoken understanding. How could you hate me so? Hearing my laughter, I gazed at this mud-covered gentleman and sighed inwardly. How blind the people of the capital must be to bestow upon him the title of First Gentleman. If no one dared nominate Li Shujin, would he ever have been chosen? Who said we're starting over? Xie, you'd better keep your eyes wide open and live well. Far from enough. Not a single ounce of my past life's suffering shall go unrequited. With that, I strode onward, only to collide with someone at the bamboo grove's bend. Li Shujin's narrowed eyes held a hint of reckless amusement as he watched me silently. I couldn't help but retort, "Your Majesty, have you grown addicted to eavesdropping?" Perhaps my mother's morning advice to act more willfully had taken effect, or perhaps the anger Xiaozichan had stirred in me hadn't yet subsided. I found myself utterly unafraid of Li Shujin. I stared back at him, adopting a devil-may-care attitude. "Your Majesty, you saw it all." "Yes," I pushed him. "I am a willful person." He merely smiled and said, "The Grand Tutor will be pleased." What does this have to do with my father? Just as I was about to press him, his gaze drifted downward, settling on the red mark Xiaozichan had left on my wrist. His expression darkened as he reached out. I instinctively flinched backward, and his hand froze midair. "Last night, you weren't this distant. Last night, I was poisoned. If I offended your Majesty, it was not my intention." Li Shujin withdrew his hand, yet his gaze lingered on the crimson marks on my wrist. "How do you wish to deal with the one who poisoned you?" Studying his expression, it seemed he already knew who it was. Given their special status, no action will be taken. My cousin had been entrusted to the Chui household in the capital for upbringing, and the Jing clan of Qinghe was such a prominent aristocratic family. My parents, mindful of this, had secretly dealt with the maid who served as my cousin's spy. They felt deeply guilty toward me. Moreover, my cousin was about to enter the palace. Thinking of this, I looked at Li Shujin before me. "Your Majesty, could you prevent my cousin from entering the palace?" If Xing Yueshu enters the palace, she will surely repeat the patterns of my past life, pretending to care for her younger sister, demanding I pay daily court visits, and devising countless ways to make my life miserable. Li Shujin paused, suddenly lifting his gaze to regard me with unhurried composure. "Why do you wish to prevent her entry?" As I searched for an excuse, he leaned closer and murmured, "Before you and Xiaozichan broke off your engagement, I too had this thought." "Do you know why?" My eyes darted as I analyzed his words. Though my father and the Duke of Wei are old friends, their political views often clash. Could it be the Emperor fears that if the Chui and Xia families become in-laws, court sessions would grow too quiet without their arguments? A long silence followed. I stared wide-eyed at Li Shujin's tense face. Chui Wan. For the first time, someone had uttered my name with such gritted teeth. Was my guess wrong? "You truly are your father's daughter." "Well said." "Likewise, Your Majesty." "You are truly Your Majesty." Close call. That flattery nearly backfired. I suspected Li Shujin was angry, but I had no proof. At the old princess's birthday banquet, no matter how splendid the performances, he remained cold-faced throughout. Moreover, I grew suspicious I'd flattered the wrong person. I kept glancing toward the main seat where he sat, yet he truly seemed as if he didn't want to see me at all. My heart sank. This was bad. Now I had to deal with two enemies, and the only relatively powerful ally I could leverage for personal favors had been easily severed by my own actions. Could it be because I didn't want Jing Yueshu in the palace, and he actually favored her? In my previous life, after Jing Yueshu was made consort Shu, she was indeed very favored. Otherwise, she wouldn't have flaunted it in front of me every day. Wait, that doesn't quite add up. She flaunted Xiaozichan's favor to me. But she did bear an imperial prince in my previous life, didn't she? Just as this thought crossed my mind, Jing Yueshu had already changed into a magnificent gauze gown, her flowing skirt shimmering with light. She rose to perform a dance. Her movements were graceful and flowing, dreamlike and ethereal. My great-uncle He Qing had written a letter to the emperor, stating that if His Majesty would grant my cousin entry into the palace and bestow upon her the title of consort, he would surrender all military authority in Huainan. This was known to many present. With other aristocratic clans scattered, only the Jing family remained dominant. The military authority of Huainan had been something the Jing stubbornly refused to relinquish since the current emperor ascended the throne. After so many years as a son-in-law, how had my eldest uncle persuaded the Jing family? Without deploying a single soldier, merely granting a consort title could reclaim it all, truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Shouldn't the emperor, as in my past life, simply welcome my cousin into the palace as a matter of course? How naive of me to even consider advising him against it. His face, tense for so long, finally softened. Perhaps this dance was meant to urge His Majesty to announce her entry into the palace sooner. After the dance concluded, my cousin glided gracefully across the stage to offer birthday congratulations to the Empress, yet her eyes remained fixed on Li Shujin. The princess consort, ever perceptive, beckoned her cousin closer and, after lavishing praise, turned to the emperor. Moon Bamboo has endured these lonely years in the capital with such poise. Thankfully, she possesses such grace. Your Majesty, she is 17 now, an age when one should settle down. I humbly request your grace, that her parents, far away in Hiqing, may find peace. The princess consort, a member of the Jing clan and Jing Yueju's aunt, had likely heard that her uncle's letter had reached the palace yet received no reply. Li Shujin, naturally. His fingertips tapped lightly on the armrest as he swept his gaze across the hall. In that case, let us seize this day. I shall bestow a marriage upon her. Jing Yueju, who had been shyly lowering her head, trembled at these words and looked up. What? A marriage personally bestowed by His Majesty, she would never kick it away herself. Whispers rippled through the banquet hall as guests speculated on the emperor's true intentions. Watching Emperor Li Shujin's gaze sweep over the eligible young nobles of the capital, Jing Yueju grew frantically signaling to the princess consort who had spoken earlier. The princess consort, unaware that her gentle urging had escalated to this point, lost her composure. Your Majesty, how could this be a bestowed marriage? Have you forgotten the letter sent from Qinghe? By this point, she was practically laying it out plainly, yet Li Shujin remained puzzled. A letter? When was this letter? I've been hunting in the northern mountains these past half-month and haven't even finished reviewing the backlog of memorials. Is there some urgent matter concerning the Jing family? Jing Yueju nearly choked on her breath, her body going limp as the princess consort supported her. Over the past fortnight, news of her impending entry into the palace had spread like wildfire. The Jing family, certain the emperor wouldn't pass up such a golden opportunity to consolidate military power, had deliberately leaked the information throughout the capital while he was away. Their motives were twofold: to build momentum for Jing Yueju's entry into the palace, and to reinforce their underlying contempt for the young Emperor Li Shujin, believing he had no choice but to acquiesce. Yet to everyone's surprise, he had merely stated he had never seen the letter. But who dared tell Li Shujin now that the contents of his letter had been widely circulated, while he, the emperor himself, had seen nothing? The princess consort found herself utterly speechless. At her advanced age, she was being roasted alive by her own family. There's nothing urgent. My sister and brother-in-law mentioned in their letter that they were anxious about Yueju's marriage. I imagine the request in the letter to His Majesty would be the same. In that case, I need not read the letter. Today, I shall grant Jing Yueju a suitable marriage. I find her quite well matched with the heir apparent of the Duke of Wei. Xie Zichen, do you consent? Xie Zichen, who had changed into fresh attire and arrived late to the banquet, had barely taken his seat when his name was called out publicly. He hadn't even processed the situation yet. How could he possibly refuse? In both his past and present lives, he had pursued this very outcome with such relentless obsession. Yet now, instead of immediately agreeing, he instinctively turned his head to look in my direction. All eyes at the banquet followed his gaze, turning toward me. My mother's face instantly turned cold, as did Li Shujin's. Where does the crown prince look? You were unworthy of the previous betrothal, but surely this one is fitting. The crown prince need not belittle himself. His 3 shouts outside the Chui residence yesterday were still fresh in everyone's memory, witnessed by many present at the banquet. Li Shujin's words here were laughable. The displeasure on my mother's face gradually faded. It shifted instead to Jing Yueju's face. Xie Zichen replied, "This servant consents." After the birthday banquet concluded, Li Shujin's guards escorted me to meet someone. Have you figured it out? Why did I hope you and Prince Xie would break off your engagement? He stood with his hands behind his back, his expression unreadable. After the banquet, I felt an answer simmering just below the surface. Bolstered by the fruit wine I'd drunk with my mother's permission earlier, my courage grew. Your Majesty, do you like me? Li Shujin's back stiffened, then seemed to relax as he turned to face me. Dark currents swirled in his gaze. At last, you no longer think I merely enjoy watching court officials brawl? I gave a dry chuckle, finding it difficult to meet his eyes. My mind was in turmoil, desperately processing the revelation that Li Shujin likes me. But Li Shujin took 2 steps closer, plucking a snowflake from my hair. I didn't intend to rush this. But perhaps I was afraid that the passing years would refuse to grant me a chance. Chui Wan, may you like me? Or perhaps to show the distance between us wasn't so great, he even stopped calling himself Your Majesty. He just gazed at me earnestly, filled with hope. Having lived 2 lifetimes, my heart should have long since grown indifferent and cold. But maybe because I'd never truly cared for anyone in either life, an unusual spark flashed through my heart, and my entire face burned crimson. I found myself almost wanting to agree. The last time I agreed to something, it was to ease my parents' worries, to appease Xiazichen's feigned affection. But this time? Would a terrifying outcome still await me? My silence caused the hope in Li Shujin's eyes to gradually fade. Just before that light vanished entirely, he lowered his gaze and placed a jade token, entirely emerald green, into my hand. I await your answer, whatever it may be. Stepping down from the sedan chair, my heart still pounded wildly as I hurried toward my chambers. My father tried to follow and ask a few words, but he couldn't catch up. What's wrong with Wan Wan? Did she see a ghost? My mother murmured from behind him, she did see a ghost, the very one you fear most. I only cared to dash into my room, burying myself under the covers to hide my flushed cheeks. The next day, as I was fingering the jade token, my cousin burst in. Tears streaming down her face like pear blossoms, she sobbed, Wan Wan, save me. I don't want to marry into the Xie family. I tucked the token away and looked at her quietly. How do you want me to help? You said you wanted to marry Xiazichen, that you like him. Have your father request another imperial decree for the marriage. The whole court knows the emperor listens to your father most. If we do this, both you and I will get what we want. She spoke as if it were perfectly reasonable, just as she always did when she demanded I yield to her. Everything will be as we wish? But cousin, Xiazichen doesn't like me. Otherwise, why would he break off the engagement so decisively? In my previous life, the engagement hadn't been broken, so my cousin could always persuade me. This time, the truth was right before her eyes, and doubt finally showed on her face. Where there's a will, there's a way, little sister. He's the most sought-after young master in the capital, the dream of countless noble ladies. If you marry him, he'll grow to love you over time. Is that so, cousin? Seeing my confused expression, Xingyueshu pressed her advantage. Of course it is. When have I ever deceived you? Very well then. Xingyueshu exhaled in relief, her eyes crinkling with a smile as she departed. Yet the very next day, a tale of a match made in heaven began circulating throughout the capital. Taverns and tea-houses buzzed with the gossip. The protagonists were Xiazichen and Xingyueshu. That ancestral jade hairpin from the Duke of Wei's mansion, heard it was meant for the Xie family's future daughter-in-law. Guess what? Someone spotted it pinned in Jing Yuezhu's hair. On the night of the Lantern Festival, a young servant from a noble household rented my boat for 50 taels. When I went to collect payment later, it was none other than Xia and Jing meeting by the stream. And even more astonishing, we've long heard of the young master Xia's literary prowess. At last year's poetry gathering, the poem that won him first prize. Does anyone recall its title? Admiring Bamboo. What a name, Admiring Bamboo. The capital buzzed with rumors. More and more claimed to have seen them alone together, acting unnaturally intimate, even as Xiazichen and I remained betrothed, and Jing Yuezhu's entry into the palace stirred up a storm of gossip. One is her betrothed, the other her own cousin. To keep them both in the dark like this, how pitiful for the Chui family's daughter. In my view, that whole entering the palace rumor is utter nonsense. Our young emperor is so young and his harem remains empty, why would he need to bring in a noble lady entangled with her cousin's fiancé to be his consort? In the rumors, though Li Shujin and I weren't the main characters, we became the most pitiable figures. Having ascended the throne at 10 and ruled diligently for 8 years, Li Shujin earned the people's deep affection through his devotion to governance and frequent incognito tours. Even his origins stirred sympathy, with many feeling indignant on his behalf. Recent rumors spun the arranged marriage into a stroke of divine inspiration, even linking it to Li Shujin's past pivotal decisions. When Jing Yuezhu came calling again, I sent my maid to turn her away. Let me in. I have urgent matters to discuss with my sister. What more is there to explain at this point, cousin? Our young mistress has been so kind to you, she even planned to help you with that matter. Isn't this just toying with people? She's heartbroken and furious, having just fallen asleep in tears. Please don't disturb her. Xing Yuishu couldn't care less about someone sleeping. She was about to force her way in when Xie Zichen arrived and stopped her. Seeing his appearance, Xing Yuishu instinctively covered her nose. Young master, why does your clothing reek of swill? And eggshells and vegetable scraps, where have you been? Xie Zichen pressed his lips together, his face darkening as he remained silent. Only the servant beside him wiped leftover food scraps from his face. The people of the capital have gone mad. In the past, they'd toss fresh melons and fruits into our master's carriage as tokens of affection. Today, they treat us like a prisoner's cart. Xing Yuishu tried to rush back into my courtyard, but she covered her nose with her handkerchief and took a few steps back. Xie Zichen, whose pride was now razor-sharp, saw this. Without a word, he grabbed her hand and yanked her out. Xing Yuishu, even if the whole world despises me today, you dare not. Let go of me, Xie Zichen. What's that sticky stuff on your hand? Egg white. Only after they had walked far away did I emerge. In their past life, hadn't they been unable to contain their feelings, exchanging secret glances? In this life, let them fully enjoy days without hiding or evading, let them stay close and accompany each other. Order someone to thoroughly wash and sweep the places they passed through. After that, Li Shujin left the palace in plain clothes and invited me out several times. He was a good emperor, young yet neither boisterous nor indulgent. He'd squat down in a tea shop set up by a nomad tent to chat with the old man, or gently lift a little beggar who'd stumbled at his feet with a smile. When encountering street performers, he'd clap and offer rewards, just like any ordinary young nobleman in the capital. But I hid behind him, afraid to look. He turned his head slightly. What's wrong? The Tibetan performer's trained tiger was leaping through fiery hoops, stacked rings of blazing fire, each more intense than the last. I steadied my voice, though fear gripped me, and instinctively clutched his sleeve. I don't like fire. But then his back stiffened. He slowly turned, searching for my hand. For some reason, I felt he seemed even more flustered than I was in that instant. It's my fault. Let's not watch anymore. His hand, clasping mine, radiated a steady warmth. He led me away like that. I stopped. Never mind. I'm suddenly not so scared anymore. Li Shujin let me hide behind him, occasionally peeking over his shoulder. But he seemed to have lost his earlier enthusiasm, glancing back frequently. With my hand held, I grew bolder, even exclaiming, "That big bug is so brave. It's not afraid of such a blazing fire. Getting burned must really hurt." Li Shujin suddenly pulled me into his embrace. The crowd cheered the performers from all sides, their shouts and clamor filling the air. Everyone watched the tiger leaping through the fiery hoop in the center, none noticing our embrace. Yet Li Shujin suddenly held me so tightly. He buried his head, remaining silent for a long while. It was my turn to ask what was wrong. His voice was hoarse as he said, "Wan, I'm sorry." I was about to say, "You didn't know I'm afraid of fire." Before I could speak, in a flash, a thought leapt from my mind. I suddenly sobered, wanting to verify my guess, to look at Li Shujin's face. Like flipping over a blind card on a gambling table. Finally, I saw. Li Shujin, you reborn too, right? When? The very first time. When I rushed back from the hunt and saw you before the rockery. Away from the surrounding noisy crowd, emotions became impossible to conceal. It felt like my throat was being squeezed. So you guarded me all night, not because I begged you. I know what that night meant to you. With everything restarted, I won't let those things happen again. For you, I can't bear even the slightest risk. So the man who lingered at the hunt in the last life, this time rushed back, dusty and weary. He brought the Imperial Guard to surround the area, personally guarding me through the night. I didn't know what to say. Two souls weathered by a lifetime, meeting again in another, this was the taste of it. Li Shujin gazed at me, Wan, though I still arrived too late this time, it ended without incident. Fearing further trouble, I've revealed my feelings early. My waiting will always stand. You can take your time answering me. I truly needed time to sort through my thoughts. Li Shujin seemed to understand this implicitly, never inviting me out again. After my cousin departed, my days settled into calm. Yet the rumors had likely spread far and wide by now. Suitors came knocking daily, each one deflected by my mother. My father had no objection. He only knew mother had promised me, and promises must be kept. Besides, you're still so young. These people coming daily to snatch away their daughter, it's utterly outrageous. I enjoyed the freedom, though sometimes, for no reason at all, Li Shujin would cross my mind. I wondered what he was doing. Did he think of me too? And I never even asked what became of my parents after I died in my previous life. 2 months passed like this, and I couldn't hold back any longer. I grabbed the jade token and set out for the palace. But at the palace gates, I encountered Xie Zichen, whom I hadn't seen in ages. He had grown noticeably thinner, his cheeks sunken. The once peerless first gentleman of the capital now resembled a studious scholar, lost in his own frustrations. After that rumor spread, he and Jing Yuezhu left the capital together, hastily exchanging vows at the Jing family estate in Qinghe. Only the Duke and Duchess of Wei attended the ceremony in the capital. They returned looking deeply troubled. The Duchess confided in my mother, lamenting how her only son had abruptly left the capital to become a son-in-law to a clan with treacherous ambitions. The Duke's face darkened. The Xie family is a line of loyal martyrs, he declared. The Jings are nothing but bandits who seized a mountain as their stronghold. Even if they were to die childless, they'd never deserve such a son. Fortunately, as the Duchess spoke, she fainted. My mother hastily summoned a physician, who declared she was with child and must avoid distress. This late-in-life son finally gave the Duke and Duchess new hope. As for how Xie Zichen fared in the Jing household, I cared little. The capital, too, seemed to care less and less. When our paths crossed, I only wished to pass swiftly, but he blocked my way. Cui Wan, what are you doing entering the palace? What business is it of yours? I had no desire to engage him, yet I heard him say from behind, do you know what that person you seek did to your parents in the previous life? Do you know that while I kept you imprisoned at the Xie residence, your parents were being held captive in the dungeons by that very person? I halted 5 steps from the palace gates. He caught up. In the past life, when you were in the Xie household, my parents treated you well. Do you think your father didn't know this? When the cunning hare dies, the hunting dog is cooked. Your father, as the emperor's mentor, understood the ways of the throne best. He foresaw that day long ago. Marrying you into the Xie family, did you think it was to watch over me? It was to entrust me to his friends, the Duke and Duchess of Wei. After a long moment, I found my voice. So that's why you hate me so much. Yes, I hate you. I hate that you came to bind me, just like the disciplinary rod that trained me in noble manners since childhood. I don't want a wife chosen by my parents. I want a wife who belongs to Xie Zichen. Do you understand? I blinked. Congratulations. Now you have one, a wife not approved by your parents, but deeply loved by you. At these words, Xie Zichen seemed unable to bear it. Shaking his head, he murmured, it's not like that. It's wrong. I froze in place, unsure how to proceed. Should I move forward? Or retreat? Li Shujin, do you even have it? As I stared at the imposing palace gates, unsure which way to go, the gates swung open. A guard accompanying Li Shujin stepped before me. His Majesty wishes to see you. I followed him inside, passing through the solemn palace halls, until I saw Li Shujin lying on the bed. Bandages wrapped tightly around his face, seeping blood. His complexion was as pale as paper. He gave me a bitter smile. I never wished for you to see me like this. Yet, there are those who seek to ruin this emperor's lifelong commitment. No matter how I asked about the origin of his wounds, he refused to say. No matter how I tried to stop him, urging him to wait until he was healed, he would not listen. Yet, in this state, barely clinging to life, he laid bare the events of his past life before me. It was a scheme devised by the Grand Tutor and this emperor. Through his words, I learned for the first time of events I could never have known after marrying into the Xie family. All these years my father supported Li Shujin, making many political enemies. These factions sought to eliminate my father first, paving the way to challenge the young emperor. Later, my father and Li Shujin joined forces to orchestrate a purge, eliminating the disloyal ministers. Afterward, my parents were released unharmed. Wan, however skilled I am in the art of imperial governance, I would never harm the Grand Tutor. To me, he is both teacher and father. And father-in-law. I shot him a glare, but my hand was held fast, impossible to shake free. After my death, what became of father and mother? Li Shujin had not wished to speak of it, but seeing my persistence, he sighed. The Grand Tutor turned white overnight. Upon hearing the sudden news, the princess took to her bed and never rose again. But I protected them for the rest of their years. They eventually retired to the countryside, lingering over rural life, and both passed away peacefully in their old age. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes, staring at Li Shujin, unsure what to say. The less I knew what to say, the more likely I was to say the wrong thing. And you? In our past life, my cousin became a consort and was pregnant, but she died later. You also lost your first child. What about you? I killed her. What? I couldn't follow. I never touched her. Her child wasn't mine. I was utterly shocked. My cousin and Xie Zichen had dared to go that far. If the Duke of Wei had known, he would have wanted to kill his own son on the spot. Recalling how they'd flirted openly before me in our past life, I found myself sympathizing with Li Shujin. Those two were disgusting, I know. You must have been furious to kill her. That wasn't why I killed her. I never touched her, yet she was pregnant. It conveniently silenced those court officials' talk about heirs. Peace would have sufficed. But then, her sights turned to you. I froze. I'd always believed my cousin, no matter how she tormented me, would never go so far as to kill me. Seeing Li Shujin's face grow paler by the moment, my heart finally ached for him. Enough. Rest now. I'm afraid if I don't tell you, you'll be swayed by others again next time. I don't trust just anyone. I'd never seen Li Shujin like this before, harmless, almost fragile. He clung to me, refusing to let go, as if genuinely afraid I'd run away. In a moment of madness, I leaned closer and gave his soft, warm lips a quick peck. I won't run away, okay? His cheeks flushed crimson, looking far more endearing than his usual prim demeanor. I couldn't resist and kissed him again. His face flushed even deeper, his eyes glistening as he murmured my name, Wan. Just one more kiss, and the pain will fade. I gave him what he wanted without hesitation. But when I tried to pull away after the kiss, a large hand suddenly pressed against the back of my head, trapping me. Li. Instead, he leaned in, inch by inch, deepening the kiss, turning and twisting. Before I knew it, our positions had reversed, and I was kissed until I was utterly breathless. Our bodies pressed together, dazed and confused. I sensed something. My face flushed crimson instantly. Li Shujin also froze. But his thick skin only grew thicker in this moment. Brushing against my neck, his breath came in ragged gasps. Wan. Help Jin Gu, please? The wound reopened half an hour later. My father arrived an hour after that. He dragged me home and began berating me. If someone had malicious intent, they could frame this as regicide. Our entire family would be ruined. I recalled Li Shujin bleeding profusely and fell silent, terrified. As I wiped my tears, father suddenly eyed me suspiciously, but it was just a hug. How could it cause such a gaping wound? It's true, father, I'm not lying. Maybe I was too rough. Inside, I resented Li Shujin. When I asked if it hurt, he'd said, "Yes, I want you to feel the pain." That rotten boy. Father finally believed me, yet both he and mother remained uncharacteristically calm. I was anything but calm. Don't you two have anything to ask me? We've known about this little affair of yours for ages. After your nightmare last time, your father stormed off to the palace clenching his fists, only to return wiping tears, claiming they'd talked through the night. But really, he was just soothed by Ah Jin. Who? Who was wiping tears? Madam, don't make things up. You told me yourself. You said Ajin truly lives up to your teachings. If he were to marry into the family, it wouldn't be a bargain for those old fools in court. It's getting late, madam. Let's go. Wan should be resting. After father and mother left, I breathed a deep sigh of relief. But then I recalled what had just happened, and my face flushed fiercely once more. I was terribly worried about Li Shujin's freshly bandaged wounds. In my mind, I'd already planned how I'd sneak out tomorrow to see him. Li Shujin's injuries stemmed from the Jing family's impatience. In my previous life, the Jing family demanded Jing Yueshu enter the palace under the pretense of returning military authority. After she became pregnant, they mobilized troops from all Qinghe counties, brazenly declaring the tiger token they surrendered was fake. They threatened that if Li Shujin refused to name Jing Yueshu's unborn child as crown prince, they would seize half of the genuine military token. The court erupted in fury, denouncing the Jing family as shameless. When Jing Yueshu died, taking both her unborn child and herself, the Jing family rose in rebellion. The Duke of Wei engaged them in battle and initially won a great victory. Yet soldiers in his camp let slip the news that his son in the capital had set himself and his wife ablaze. Overcome with grief, the Duke wrote a blood-stained letter of apology to his old friend Cui Yuanshan, who remained imprisoned, before dying on the battlefield. Li Shujin clasped my hand tightly as he spoke these words. Over 100,000 perished in that war. Though the Jing clan was ultimately defeated, it remains my deepest regret from my years in power. So you reincarnated to prevent this war. Alone on the throne for decades, I relived that war night after night, replaying it thousands of times. I sought a bloodless resolution. So from the moment I was reborn, I began secretly deploying agents within the Jing clan. Like an umbrella, no matter how well it shelters from wind and rain, if its mortise and tenon joints are secretly replaced, it will gradually rot away. I wonder how Li Shujin's agents stirred things up. The Jing family actually sent assassins into the palace to kill the emperor. My heart ached as I looked at the blood-soaked bandage I'd just removed. It wasn't entirely bloodless. Li Shujin smiled. Though I welcomed them with open doors, the blade missed my vital organs. It's nothing serious, it's just that after you arrived, I couldn't help but, I covered his mouth, ears flushing crimson, cutting him off. The Jing family offered up a scapegoat. You know him too. Who? I saw Xia Zichen again in the prison cart. He was covered in rotten eggs and leftover food hurled by passers-by, enduring the curses of thousands. How dare you assassinate our emperor? When did we ever get such a good ruler? We, the people of the capital, watched him grow up. What first gentleman of the capital? To me, he's the first shameless. Well read, born into a noble family, yet raised to be such a disgrace, truly a shame on the Duke's household. The Duke of Wei spent his life on the battlefield, yet he deserved better than this son. Thankfully, he severed ties long ago. The Duchess is about to give birth, there will be an heir. Xia Zichen's gaze was vacant, yet he locked eyes with me instantly. He pushed himself up from the stocks. Pinching my nose, I mimicked the disgust he'd shown me in my past life. Xia Zichen, in this new life, why do you stink to high heaven every single day? Was your last life too clean for you? He hung his head helplessly, as if searching for a crack to crawl into. I started anew, wanting only to fulfill the regrets of my past life, to live freely as I pleased. Yet somehow, I ended up like this. So many things turned out differently than I imagined. Yueshu never truly loved me, and I didn't entirely. Prince Xia, it's time for you to leave. He gripped the railing tightly. Cui Wan, if in my past life I hadn't heeded the Jing family's words and killed you like that. If we'd lived on together, as time passed, would you? No. He stared at me in astonishment at my bluntness, his gaze unfocused. Why? Because someone told me that if I hadn't died by your hand, he was prepared to take me. His words echoed in my ears, seemingly playful yet utterly earnest. The only infamy I wished to leave behind was that of stealing a minister's wife. Xia Zichen understood. Before departing, he asked me, with my fate now sealed, you must feel your hatred sated. Can you forgive me? I remained silent for a long time before sighing, yes. Thank you. Watching him walk away with a look of release, I stood rooted to the spot for a long time. Until a deafening roar erupted in the distance. The prison cart suddenly burst into flames, engulfing its occupants in an instant, leaving only wails and sobs. I calmly withdrew my gaze, turned, and called to those beside me, "Let's go." This time, the hatred was truly avenged. After Jing Yuezhu handed me the imperial token, she clutched my hand as if it were her last lifeline. "Sister, I listened to you and stole it out. Now, no one will kill me, right?" Her expression was tense, her eyes vacant and sunken from lack of sleep. Beneath her torn robes were wounds beaten into her by the Jing family. I smiled faintly. "Of course not. What did I say in my letter? The emperor wants to kill me, the Jing family wants to kill me. Only my cousin has been kind to me. As long as I listen to you, I can live. Such a good girl." I rewarded her with a piece of candy. "If there's nothing else, go back to your room. Hide well. Don't let the Jing family find you." She nodded and obeyed. Watching her tiptoe away, I thought of my own past self. My cousin could never have imagined that one day, our roles would be reversed. There's plenty of time ahead. She'll get used to it. And she'll do it better than I ever did. When I gave Li Shujin the tiger token as a New Year's gift, he looked utterly stunned. "You traded your jade token for it, you didn't lose out. And something I've schemed for years, you actually got your hands on it. What's the reward? A reward of you kissing me? Or me kissing you? Or do you want to? But Wan, it's daytime now. I still need to go see the Grand Tutor later. What if I'm late? Li Shujin. You're hopeless. Fine, I'll do as you say. Who can resist someone so capable? I never said I'd." Outside the window, the first rays of the New Year's sun broke through. Spring snow melted, and all things awoke. The story ends here. Thank you all for your company. See you in the next chapter.